You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Are you ready to learn the 3 secrets to launching a successful podcast? Hi, I'm Bill, a recent client of the Podcast Mogul. If you've been thinking about starting a podcast but aren't sure where to begin, he's got you covered. He is hosting a free webinar where he will share the 3 secrets that can help you launch, grow, and monetize your podcast without any fancy equipment or technical headaches. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot now and let him help get your podcast off the ground.
Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the Podcast Mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I am, of course, your host with the most, the Podcast Mogul Phil Better. And today's guest, I'm happy to say, is a business mindset coach, certified pediatric chiropractor, a 3-time author, and a podcaster speaker. His books, the 3 books, and the one that we're going to be talking about, his most recent one, The Decoding the Matrix, which came out in May of 2020, is a revolutionary exploration of the forces around you that conspire to hold you back from achieving your dreams and becoming successful and finding happiness. Our guest has helped over 100. Jesus. You'd think a podcaster would be able to read a simple intro that they wrote. Here, let's do this again. Our guest has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs learn how to create their dream life effortlessly through sharing principles of living in the quantum world. He helps business owners lead more fulfilled lives. He helps business owners lead more fulfilled lives effortlessly while working less, getting out of that grind, hustle mentality, and making their dreams a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to stop talking and introduce Dr. Vic Manzo Jr. Dr. Vic, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, brother. I am excited to be here.
After that intro, I don't know why you would be excited, but
it's the humanness of you, man. It's beautiful. I love it.
I love the that's like I used to do real. You're a podcaster, so you know, like sometimes when you first start, you try and get like the perfection down, all the the ahs, and the pauses that are too long. You try and get those edited out, and then you realize that takes like 80 hours of your life for a 1 hour podcast. No, that's not happening. And then you start loosening up, and now it's just like I mess up. I don't really mind. Hopefully, I don't mess up too bad, but Vic, how about you introduce yourself to the audience as a welcome to the show?
Yeah. So, I've been a chiropractor for the last, it'll be 14 years in September. I haven't been practicing the last year because I kind of made a transition in my life last year where my wife and I moved from Chicago to Knoxville. Something that we wanted to do for a few years. It was I always say it's pre-COVID. It was before COVID. We thought about this. Yeah. Because a lot of people are leaving, or I don't know if they still are, but they were leaving Illinois. But it was one of those things where about 2018, this is where I started to get into coaching as like a side hustle right in December 2018. And then after the 3 years, I finally was like, I want to do this full time. And since we made the transition, I was like, well, I can take a break from chiro for a little bit. And I could, once I take that break, I'm actually going to focus on chiros too, just as much as business owners and entrepreneurs. And so that's been kind of my journey, a little bit about me in the last 15 years or so.
So what was the reason for the transition going from I'm going to be a chiropractor and have this great living helping people with their backs and bones and all that fun stuff that a chiropractor bends people into pretzels to make the cracking noises. That's what I see on TikTok. So I don't know if that's the actual thing, but I know you guys, my dad used to go to a chiropractor. So I know there's a lot of relief that can be helped by him. But what was that like, transition deciding, hey, let's go from chiropractic to coaching? Like, what was that? Why? Like, obviously you had your freedom because you're a chiropractor. You're pretty much printing money as a business if you're smart, right? Because it's a needs everybody has. So like, what was that, like, the reasoning behind?
I love this question because it was one of the things where in the first 5 years of my career, I hit my financial peak, close to 7 figures. And it was one of those things where I was unfulfilled, unsatisfied, burned out every 4 to 6 months. I couldn't figure out why I was burned out every 4 to 6 months because I was always told, like in the business and self-help world, when you're passionate, when you find your why, you'll always have infinite energy. Well, I knew my why. I had a vision. I had all those things. And yet I was burned out every 4 to 6 months. And so I went through a deep spiritual soul seek, like just some soul seeking. My wife worked with me in the office. She has more titles than I did in the office. I was just a chiropractor and co-owner. She was the chief marketing officer, the chief operations officer. She was the office man.
She had all these business
titles.
Pretty much. You were the employee. She was the business in essence.
Oh, we used to tell our patients all the time to be like, who's the boss? I'm like, she's the boss. I'm like, she's the one that tells me what I have to do in this office. The only thing that she can't talk about is the clinical stuff. That's the only thing that's my world. But there came a point where we changed our office. Long story short, I started to practice all these different principles that I knew from back in the day, like mindset and quantum physics and neuroscience and universal law, spirituality, all this stuff. And I started to put that together. And well, guess what? I started to choose my reality and I chose my success and I got back to my financial peak. I took a 40% hit when I made all these changes on purpose because I changed my office around. And then a year later, we were back right where we were, but I was working 50% less. At that moment in time, I started to evaluate things and look at my life and go, okay, I've been in practice now for, 8 years and we're doing phenomenally well. And I was looking at things and I started to look at my reach. I started to look at my vision when I was in chiropractic school and what I wanted to do and the people I wanted to help. And that's when things started to hit me because I started to look and I go, as much as I'm successful, one of the bigger pediatric offices in Illinois, I've had great success. I made a massive impact in my community. I am the guy to go to for holistic and pediatric health. And at the same token, though, when I looked at my reach, and this is not an ego thing, so I want to really clarify this. Don't take that out of context. I just had a bigger vision than when I was serving. And I felt like I was very small in this. And I said, well, how can I serve bigger? How can I help more? What can I do to really serve the humanity in the way I want to? And I started to look and I said, well, I don't know if chiropractic is going to be that. The only way I can do this is I'll open up other offices, start training docs, working on them, mentoring them, coaching them, and then starting to evolve because that was one of my visions. And eventually I'm going to continue that vision eventually. But I was like, no, that's when I got into the coaching and I started to look and I saw the success that started to happen there. And I'm like, this is where I want to be right now because I'm changing people from a mindset perspective. When I could change their mind, I change their life. I tried doing that in chiropractic in some ways because the way I shared chiropractic is kind of different to a lot of other chiropractors. And when I'm incorporating mindset and energetic stuff and energy healing and all these other things, that could sound a little out there for a lot of people. But I couldn't do the massive shifts that I wanted to do with my patients. Some people were just like, hey, you're my chiropractor. I want you just to be my chiropractor. And I was like, okay, that's a little different than all right, that's fine. Let's do it that way. But the mindset stuff was more fulfilling in some way, but it helped fulfill more of the bigger vision I had. This vision I created was around 23. And it was at that point where I looked at my wife and I'm like, I think this is what I can do because I can still coach chiropractors. And I feel like I could be a part of their, like a small sliver of their success. It's mostly all them, but I feel like I'm a little bit of a part of that. And now my reach is starting to extend out. And I feel like I'm helping humanity more and just working in my office in the small little town that I was in.
I love that because your message, the core of it is helping others. Like the bare bones is helping either, like you said, when you were a chiropractor, helping your client, your customer, your individual come in and either do the simple thing of, I just need you to chiropract my back, or, hey, let's look at change the mindset, helps build everything and the holistic approach. And now you're taking that same thing and bringing it into the bigger world with your coaching, helping other people hit that level of success. Like you said, it may be a small sliver, but it's the start of their success, because they may have success to a certain level, but they're not reaching that full potential as a human. I love that's your goal. It's like basically it's just helping people. Whatever it is, it's just helping people get to what they need.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's always been that for me. I mean, that's what got me into chiropractic. It was a health issue I had, and then it all of a sudden turned around, and it was totally nothing related to back, neck pain, and headaches, like what I thought chiropractic did. And it was fascinating how my whole life changed and everything. And I was just like, okay, there's a lot of people that are way worse off than I am. I need to get this message out there in some way, shape, or form. And, doing it for as long, I mean, I'm only 10. I always say, I've been a chiropractor now, 13 years, 14 years, 2009. So 14 years going on. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm still young in this profession. But it's one of those things now. I feel like I'm at just a different level to where I'm like, okay, this is where I feel I'm being called to. And everything just lined up. My wife wanted to, we decided to want to move to Tennessee, and that started to happen. And then when it did, I was like, okay, this is all aligning. It's all working out. And it really did. Everything worked out to make that transition, to make it happen to where we are today.
Now, chiropractors generally aren't the authors, and you've written 3 books. Now, the 2 others, unfortunately, I don't really have up here, but we have Decoding the Matrix. How did you come up with the thought process behind writing books, going from chiropractor to coaching? And obviously books help, but like, where was it that, hey, I want to write a book?
It was, I was in chiropractic school. I always wanted to be an author. It was just something I wanted to do. It was just something I felt would be a calling. And at the time, when I was 28, I tried writing one and it just wasn't working out. I was like, okay, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to get this going. And nothing was coming out of me. I was like, I couldn't focus. I do one chapter on something, and then the next chapter, I was like, oh no, I shouldn't write about that. I should do this instead. I should do it. It just wasn't working out. It wasn't until 2018, 2017, I went through all the changes that we went through. And all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? I think I want to get back into podcasting. I did podcasting in 2012. It was a health podcast called Wellness Smart Radio. And I did about 104 episodes, and it was great. But the thing was, I was like, man, there's so many people talking about health. I'd rather just focus my energy on health to my community and really just keep it more local than trying to expand out. And after I closed that down, I went, this is where the calling of a podcast came back. And I've always wanted to have a podcast on like spirituality or mindset or something along those lines. And one day I was just like, enough talk about this. I'm creating it. And it just came to me. I'm like, the mindful experiment. I'm like, I was going to call it the life experiment, but that just doesn't sound cool. But I was like, the mindful experiment. I'm like, we all experiment life in our own ways. So I was like, here we go. And then we started that. And then from there, prior to just launching, that's where the book was coming, where I was like, I'm going to write a book. And I started just writing, and it just started to flow. It just came out of me. It wasn't like I didn't really have to think too much about it. When I wrote my first book, a couple of friends of mine who wanted to write books are like, how did you do it? What system did you use? What outlines? How did you do this? And I'm like, listen, I know those, but what I'm going to tell you is very unorthodox. I didn't do much of any of that. They're like, what do you mean do any of that? I'm like, no, literally, I just chose what I wanted to do. And that was the end of it. Like, I just really wrote the title of the chapter. And then I just got into a state, flow came, and I started writing. And that was my first book, was Rediscover Your Greatness. And it was all about what are the rules to this fabric called life, or this thing called life. And basically all the changes I made in my business of what I did from a mind perspective and using universal laws and all these other things, that's what that book kind of tailors into, to what helped me get to those levels of what I did.
I love that. Now, in your at least 14 years of being a chiropractor and adding on the coaching, you've obviously been able to experience some great moments, either through your clients or you personally achieving something like, wow, I never thought I would be able to achieve that. And then look at me, I'm standing on top of Mount Kilimanjaro, looking over the vastness that is Earth. Do you have a memory like that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. I mean, one is very simple and quick. It was when I was younger, to where kind of inspired a lot of this, like, help in a way. 12 years old, and I didn't understand why people suffer and some didn't. Why, they always heard always bad things happen to good people and this and that. And I was always like, why is that? Why is that? Why is that? And that was always a pressing moment in my mind. But I have a ton of things I can share from my chiropractic world. I mean, there's just so much. The thing if I could generalize it all, it's having a mother trust me with their newborn, especially their first, to help them with whatever they have going on. I always commended moms when they came into the office, and I just said, I want to thank you for trusting me. Because especially if it's their second, third, don't get me wrong, that's important too. But the first one, mama bear syndrome, is very huge on. The second one, if you ever notice, a mom will always not share their baby much on the first one. The second one, they're like, yeah, do whatever you want. Go ahead and take it. I don't even care.
And then the third one, it's just a wild beast that's just running around.
Yeah, whatever. That's a little Johnny boy just doing whatever. Where the first one, they're like, no, can't do that. Nope, don't go there, honey. Please do this. It's just natural. And but I always would tell them, like, just thank you for trusting in me and this experience. I mean, don't get me wrong. You have to understand where mom is. They've tried everything and nothing's working. Mm-hmm. Right? They can't get, maybe the baby's not sleeping. Maybe they have colic. Maybe they had a traumatic birth and there's all these other things going on. Maybe they've been constipated for a week. I mean, there's just so much that can be going on. And these are some of the common ones that it's like they're trusting. And I'm just like, man, that's an honor for me to be able to do that. And I always, you can see the little kid in me when it comes out, when I have like a little infant in front of me and I'm adjusting. I'm not the world's biggest guy, but I'm not the smallest either. And I have my hands, I have decent sized pinkies and the way I adjust. And I have to like slide in there as best as I can. And my patients will look and go, a lot of them will be like, it's so fun watching you adjust an infant. Cause it's like, here you are, tiny little thing. And you're trying to get your hands in. And I'm just like, we make it work one way or another. But it's one of those things where that is the greatest. I mean, there's so many stories from that. Like, what's the greatest thing when you can see, like a family, they one time was like 6 months into care. First it was the dad who came in, daughter came in, about 2 months later, cause he was learning about chiropractic and she had a lot of emotional like eruptions that would just happen and they couldn't go to travel. They couldn't go to restaurants. And the last one, like you could tell he was burnt out from this. They were at a beautiful restaurant, downtown Chicago, gorgeous place. And, literally they're in the bathroom for like an hour and the baby's she's 5 years old almost. And she's just breaking down crying and just nonstop. And he just looks at me and goes, can chiropractic help with that? I said, absolutely. I go, we got to see what's going on first. But, the body does better without interference than it does with. And starts care 4 months later. The family, they said, we have a nickname for you. And literally the wife started care. The sister or the other daughter started care. And I'm like, oh, what's the nickname? I like nicknames. They go, your doctor changed our lives. And I go, what was that? They're like, doctor changed our lives. I'm like, please explain this one. And they're like, for the first time in our life, we can now go on trips. We've been testing it out for the last 4 months. We're going to Disney. And then the summer, we're going to rent an RV and go all throughout the West and Northwest and all that. We couldn't do that if it wasn't for your help and what you did. And like I said, I have hundreds of stories on this, probably even more. But that one, it was like very touching because it's just like the power of what we do as chiropractors in general, but just in general, the power of who we are. You never know you never know what something you say, do, or I forgot the other part of that quote, but how far reaching it will be. And that was just like, here's a family that couldn't travel, that couldn't do this, that couldn't do that. And all of a sudden, not only do we help them do that, but how about that little girl now who can now regulate her emotions a lot better, can now build up her emotions and know how to be more resilient and all these other things. What that's going to do for her life, I'm hoping that 10, 15, 20 years down the road, I can, see her as when she's older and see who she's evolved to become, because I know I played a little bit of an influence in the beginning by changing that course.
I would love that. That would be something incredible. Like you start helping someone early in their life, like you said, 4 or 5 years old. You help the whole family, but revisit 25 years later, 50 years later, and see the changes that you helped create, because she's able, like you said, to regulate her emotions better and all that. Oh my God, it's insane. Some great memories to have and keep pushing you towards it when you have the dark days. And speaking of dark days, like, how do you deal with those days where you don't feel enough? Like, I know you help business leaders feel like fulfilled in their lives, but every once in a while, like, we're humans, we have those dark days where we feel like we're crap and we're not fulfilling anything. Like, what do you do to get by on those days?
A lot of times we all have them. I have them, and it's one of those things where going back and looking at some of the former successes I had or what people have said, like when we were closing down our office, a lot of my patients, they wrote like cards to us and stuff. And we stay in touch with a good amount of them, not all of them, but like a good percentage of them. And it's one of those things where, a year later, we just passed a year in December. And I put a little post on Facebook and Instagram just saying, wow, it's been a year since I've been in practice and closing. I did a little thing on this, and patient, miss you guys, still miss you. Can't believe you're gone. Boom, 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 all these different things. And I'm just sitting there like, I guess I had more of an impact in people's lives than I thought, and here I am, someone who my patients would be like, oh, you do so much for people. You can't believe it. But I'm human, right? I don't see what people see. I see only what I can see. And it's like, you don't realize, again, how much reaching or how much of an impact you have on people. My massage therapist, she still practices in the town. And she would tell us, like in the first month, some of the clients would walk by the old space and just stand there and miss the memories that they had there. And I'm going, you got to be kidding me. So it's those moments that pick me up. And sometimes I won't say they always work because my mind is very strong and it likes to play games with me, but I'll practice the other things to help. I have different modalities I'll use, but it's remembering those times. And even in current now as being a coach, like changing lives in those levels to where someone doesn't believe in themselves or they're on the last line of finances and they're investing whatever they have left in savings into me. And I'm like, you're not investing in me, you're investing in yourself, but to trust themselves to try to do whatever they can because they said they've been trying this for years and nothing's working. And I'm like, well, kudos for you to continue moving forward. I'm excited to work with you just because of that. I know you're committed. And then, 4, 6 months, 8 months down the road, they're not there anymore. Now they can build into the savings. Now they can look into their future. Now they're hopeful. They can get back on offense. And that's the things that help me get through those moments to get out of that, I'll feel it before I get into the rut. So I'll just feel like, oh, this is not a great day. And I'm like, hold on, let's recenter. Let's go back. Let's go down memory lane. And sometimes I don't always do that. But when it's really like I'm seeing a pattern showing up and I'm seeing like thoughts going to focus on things I don't like or I choose not to experience, then it's one of those things I'm like, let's go back. I got to go. Let me look at some old letters. And I have like in my closet, I'm pointing over here. You can't see where I'm pointing, but my closet over here in my office, I have, I have it in a tote where it's just, I have all the letters and everything, all the success stories that people wrote and testimonies that they did and all those things. And even some that my clients have written to me in my coaching. And I just go back and I read them. And I'm just like, I am doing something. It's fine. I can't stay here because it's selfish. I got to get out of this and just continue to move forward. Understand why it's there, but then go ahead and continue to move forward.
That's a great tip. A great tip for anybody when they're dealing with the bad days is just look at some of your wins. Just remember those wins. And if it's not even in business, in personal, like I do something every time I have a personal win, I put it into a little jar and that usually I read at the end of the year to see all the personal wins. But if you're having a bad day, just pick a win out of the thing and see what you have to remember. I do want to pivot a bit more to another type of tip, but a tip for people who are moving from the chiropractic world into maybe coaching and maybe either to help coach either chiropractors in different aspects of their business or just in coaching, like in general, like you. What kind of tip would you have for them?
Yeah, the first thing first is anything. If it's a chiropractor going into coaching, or if it's just you starting a business, if it's anything related, or you're switching careers, or whatever that's going to be, the number one thing that I share this with my clients, we work on this immediately when they work with me, is you got to have a crystal clear vision of what are you wanting to create? What do you want to experience? Why are you going to become a coach? What's the purpose of it? And you got to be crystal clear with that and understand it has to be something with substance. You can't just say, well, because it's great, like COVID hit and look how many new coaches are out in the world now, right? And to me, it's one of those things where I'm like, how many people are, you got to have that vision because you're going to have dark days. You're going to have lean months. You're going to have things that hit obstacles that are going to come up. The vision is what sees you persevere through it all. But also vision gives you clarity. And it also helps you with taking action because you only take actions based upon what your vision is. If it's not aligned with your vision, you don't do it. Because then what happens is you create incongruencies. And incongruencies, from a quantum perspective, when you have incongruencies, you're not going to attract what it is you truly want. you're not going to attract. And this is one of the works I do with a lot of my clients. When we get this cleared, all of a sudden their whole business starts to shift. And they're like, I didn't do anything different except this vision stuff. And I'm like, it's that powerful. There's a lot more we can do, but that's the most powerful. But you want to be crystal clear, write it out. And you want to be clear on every level. Why are you being a coach? What's the ideal people you want to serve? Why do you want to serve them? What's the purpose behind that? And when you get really clear with all these things, this sets kind of like the GPS roadmap of where you want to go. It's like punching it in to Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever you use or Waze. And what ends up happening is then it sets the course of like, this is the course I follow. It has to align to where I'm going. If it doesn't, I don't touch it. And this is advice, and this is not my thing I've created. I've just kind of pulled it and made it my own, but billionaires do this. I remember Jeff Bezos was getting interviewed, and they're like, hey, great guys, interviews like, hey, great returns on last quarter. He's like, to be honest, I don't even know what our last quarter returns were. He's like, you kidding me? He's like, no. He goes, weren't you just in a meeting that you're going over your quarterly review? He goes, yeah, the quarter from like 3 years from now, not last month or the next quarter or the following. He goes, we map out every 2 to 3 years when we're going over quarterly reviews. That's how far out we're looking.
That is like 2 tips on 2, man. Like, Jesus, this episode is nothing but gold. I'm just going to call it the Golden Doctor episode. Get the thing to change your life. We are coming up to near the end, and I hate this part because having a fun time talking with your doc about everything, mindfulness, and of course your shift. But we do need to get to the Spark question of the show. Again, Spark is done by Yes Theory and Seek Discomfort. They want you to spark conversations with strangers because those are friends you haven't met yet. And this is interesting. What is the bravest thing you've ever done?
Man, the bravest thing I ever done. That's a good one. This may not sound brave to people, but it was for me at the time. So I come from a very small community. It was a very tight-knit Italian community in near Chicago. And at 18, I decided, which wasn't popular at the time, to go away to college. That was like 3.5-hour flight. I went to Arizona State for a year and a half, where I knew no one. I had family that was like 45 minutes away, but it wasn't like I was seeing them often. And so for a kid who grew up in a big Italian family, always around family, I mean, almost pretty much every single day we had people over at the house and hanging out, to now all of a sudden leaving all of that to go to a place where I didn't know anybody. And the only person I knew was my roommate, because we got on a phone call like 3 months before I was moving, and just saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, so-and-so. We talked for like 20 minutes. I was like, all right, bud, I'll see you in like 2 months. All right, cool, man. Have a good one. That was it. And then to create what I created out there with friends and the people and all that, to me, that was, I mean, there's other things I can say, like starting my own business, all these letting go of my business in chiropractic in Chicago. We didn't sell it because the climate wasn't working to sell. To let that go and then go move to Knoxville, where again, don't know anybody here. It's just me and my wife and my new daughter and our dog. Can't miss out on my dog. And to do those kind of things, but to go on that, I think I would have to leave it to probably both of those, because they're very similar, right? I left my family to go to Arizona State, didn't know anybody. And now we did the exact same thing now, but we're doing it in going to Knoxville. But at least I have a partner in crime.
Yeah, at least someone to at least support you, your roommate, if you will, and a little person you have to support. But that is huge. A huge step to take, and like that's a big bet to take on yourself that you'll be able to survive, like especially at a young age, like 18, betting on yourself in a completely different environment that you'll be when you've been quote unquote sheltered with family. Like you don't really have to figure out things by yourself. You have your whole family, and now that is insane, and especially for a young age, but sets you up for success regardless. Vic, I'm going to jump off the screen here. I'm going to give you ample time to tell my audience where they can find you, where they can follow you, support you, whatever you want to talk about. The floor is yours. So go ahead, sir.
I appreciate that. Yeah, you can find me. Everything is on my website, empoweryourreality.com. You can catch me on my socials there and everything. I do have a free book that you can download. It's called the Mindset Solutions. I just literally rechanged the title. But you can get it. It talks about mindset, the importance of mindset, the different types, why certain people flock to one versus the other, and get into limiting beliefs, and how when you can break through those things and understand it more, you can really start to choose more of what it is you want to experience, and so much more. You can find my podcast and everything else at the website. Again, it's empoweryourreality.com.
Awesome. Vic, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your story. It was a pleasure talking with you. And actually, you're probably already started changing my mindset. I'm going to start thinking differently. I started thinking differently, but I'm going to take it to the next level now, seeing the success that you've had and the entrepreneurs you've helped. So I want to thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, brother. This was a lot of fun.
To my audience, as you know, the show notes will be chock full of those good links to connect with Vic and change your reality, change your mindset so that you can become the success you deserve to be. And again, thank you for listening, and remember to invest in yourself.
Thanks for tuning in. Now it's time to take the next step. When you're ready to dive deeper into how to launch, grow, and monetize your podcast, Phil's got something special for you. Join him for a free webinar where he'll reveal the 3 secrets that have helped countless entrepreneurs succeed in podcasting. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot, and let's turn your podcasting dreams into reality.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Your wealth makes you an irresistible target to online criminals. According to Saltus Wealth, 41% of high net worth individuals report having been victims of financial crime. Unfortunately, off-the-shelf digital security solutions aren't robust enough to protect high-profile individuals like you. So what can you do? Rely on Concierge Digital Security from Reputation Defender. Concierge Digital Security is not just another app to install, it's a team of experts working in the background to protect you and your family. Behind the scenes, Reputation Defender bundles a suite of best-in-class security solutions covering virtually every aspect of your digital life, from digital identity to online privacy, identity fraud, insurance, and home device protection. Your concierge helps manage all of these for you. Visit reputationdefender.com/success to learn more or schedule your private consultation. That's reputationdefender.com/success.